Right, I'm delighted to say Eamon McGee is with us to reflect on an incredible weekend of Gaelic football and a saucy little draw for both the Tailteann Cup semi-finals and the preliminary / wildcard weekend. Eamon, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Ger. How's the form? How are you?
Yeah, reports of the demise of Gaelic football greatly exaggerated, but particularly reports of the demise of Donegal football, it turns out, greatly exaggerated. What's going on?
Yes, pleasantly surprised there after the performance on Saturday night. Now I thought we wouldn't have enough there to take Monaghan, but put in a big first half and just showed exactly why we're saying this for a long time, that we'll always produce players now, and if we can get the right structures in place and the right conveyor belt, then it's not going to be once every 20 years or once every 30 years in terms of All Ireland. Like that's the plan, that we want to be up at the top table consistently.
Fair play to Aidan O'Rourke. I know it was a difficult scenario for him to come in, but what they've managed to do to turn things around since the change of manager, it's quite spectacular, really.
It's brilliant, and fair play to them. The credit has to go towards them. Credit has to go towards the players too, because they took it an awful tanking after getting rid of Paddy Carr and then following up with bad league performances and then getting beat in the first round by a not great down team. So the players have to take credit, and of course Aidan O'Rourke for galvanising everybody and putting in. They're playing to still a wee bit of work to do in terms of the system, but you can see what they're doing, and it's great to see the likes of Dara Boyle and Oisín Gallen and just taking the opportunity that's come their way.
Now, with the way that the rest of the results went at the weekend, the reward is obviously a home preliminary quarterfinal, and it was always going to be Mayo, Tyrone or Roscommon. Of course, it had to be Tyrone in the draw this morning. Yeah,
it had to be Tyrone. Had to be here for, I'd say that's the 100th time now in the last 10 years we've met Tyrone Balbafay in Championship.
And sometimes you come out the right side of it and sometimes you don't. It's not guaranteed here. Like if 2 months ago we had said that Tyrone were going to be playing Donegal and Ballybuffet, you'd been making Tyrone 5-6 point favourites, but not at the moment.
No, and I think that's what there's a lot of younger crew there about Donegal. I think that's exactly what they need. Something, a game like that, just to really take them round and for them to rise up to the occasion, because they're it's knockout football and you'd hope to see a response, and I think the Tyrone game is exactly what you'll get from that. That'll take it out of them, and it's really exciting and looking forward to it now.
Why are Tyrone so flaky at the moment?
I don't know. I think there's sports psychologists and a lot more money than us that couldn't answer that question. There must be incredibly, second to Armagh, because Armagh are on a different level in terms of frustration, but Tyrone, they're just so inconsistent, and I can't just put my finger on exactly why that is now. I suppose if we all get on the media and get on their back and write them off, that they'll come round and produce a big performance. So my mission this week is just to play up Tyrone and say Tyrone are All Ireland champions and they're the best team that's left in it. So we've seen that response from them throughout the year, that they've had a bad performance, we've written them off, and then they'll come out and just produce a big one. So there might be an element to there probably is something psychological there. So it's just that if the management team there can sort it out and get it, and hopefully they don't now. Hopefully they'll wait till next year to sort it out.
It is something that kind of inflicts a lot of the teams that are through to this stage or through to the quarterfinal already. You had Nathan saying earlier about Mayo, they need a team that puts them under pressure, although I would argue with him that I think Cork did a pretty good job of that at the weekend. Like Kerry, it's taken them a little bit of time to get going, Dublin taking them time to get going, but they are getting there eventually. Is that just a symptom of the fact that these bigger teams, when they get to the latter end and things really feel like they're on the line, I suppose, for them, that they kind of perk up a little bit?
I think there's definitely something there. We've been brought up for years and years that championship is do or die, and now we're in the championship and there's kind of exits here. There's ways out. It's not really do or die until like this weekend, so we don't know where teams are at in terms of that mentality that you take the safety rope off, that players make different decisions. Managers really go for it. They'll risk players. So when they have that weak safety rope on, and then that's gone now, you'll see a completely different mentality for a lot of teams. And it's hard to get a gauge. I think we've all heard this word, shadow boxing, and I'm kind of fed up with it already. So it's hard to get a gauge. And I suppose teams and management are getting used to the new format, that they're trying to find their way through it. But like, we are all accustomed to the championship, that you go all in and it's all out, and this is kind of a wee bit of a departure from that. And I'd like to see a wee bit of a more threat, and that's why I'd like to see the two teams maybe. So, but we'll give this format a few years and see how we get on with it.
Yeah, I think yesterday is a ringing endorsement for it. McGeaney was making the point afterwards that like literally every point at the end of games in some groups mattered. Aidan O'Shea kicks that over, and then suddenly they're at home instead of away to Galway, and it's a massive turnaround in their fortunes. Now maybe it turns out a trip to Galway is exactly what they need. We'll have to wait and see. But like even the Kildare-Roscommon game, the drama at the end of that, maybe it would have been the same. One of those teams would have been out. But I also think then next week is actually going to be the full bit where we go, that's why the teams in third place are through, because they're all still pretty good, and there's kind of a blanket over that group of teams after you get past Dublin and Kerry. It turns out anywhere from Galway down to Roscommon, any one of those are going to fancy knocking off the other team.
Are you not including Dublin and Kerry in that? I don't think they're that far ahead of the rest of them now.
Slightly ahead. I would make them slightly ahead. I think that their ceiling is way higher than the rest of the teams if they start to click the way we know they can. And it looks like Kerry are getting players into form, and I think Dublin are getting players fit. So that's the bit where I still think
that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And I agree with you. Yesterday was, and Saturday night was a big endorsement now, but we've got to give it time. I still think there's the fact that there's only 4 teams eliminated is a big bugbear, but maybe that's their traditional. I just go back to them. I'm used to the championship where it's all in, and maybe I've got to move on from that, and really get behind this new format and this new way of thinking about the championship.
Can I just take a moment for Kevin Feely, who's come back from a horrific Achilles injury, to have a moment at the end of the game where it's just him and a left foot shot, having won the mark, which was like kind of ridiculous in and of itself. That Kildare performance is actually their best performance really since the McGeaney era. Jason Ryan had a win against Cork, and I think this might be the only other win that we've had against a team in a division higher than us since in championship. So I don't know. I'm just
and I had in my notes there just before, I had Kevin Feely's name marked as a kind of give him a wee nod, because I read an article by Maurice Brosnan there about what he's came through and the way he's battled back, and for him to score, to win the mark and then to score the point is it's just a good personal story, and you got to tip the hat to him.
Yeah, top fella as well. I don't know how far Kildare will go. I don't know if Monaghan will be delighted just getting Kildare in the draw, and they'll be thinking, yeah, that's exactly what we needed. But these games, there does seem like there'll be jeopardy in the 4 games next weekend.
Every team is going in there, and they'll have aspirations of getting to the quarterfinal. Every team will back themselves in terms of, like Kildare going in there against Monaghan. If they look at Monaghan from last Saturday, they'll see the vulnerability. They'll see that we can get at Monaghan here, and Donegal's the same with Tyrone. Obviously Mayo and Galway, that's their 2 teams, and then you have
Cork and Roscommon.
Yeah, Cork are just on a high there now, and Roscommon will again have aspirations of progressing further, and kind of backing up the good season they've had. So it's a great way to be going into a weekend like that there.
What do you think happened, Mayo, from the high of going down to Killarney and smashing Kerry the way they did to what's happened in the subsequent 2 weeks?
That's just Mayo. I was honoured with Adrian and Shane a few weeks ago, and it says, like, we were chatting about Mayo's All-Ireland credentials, and they've brilliant league, and they backed it up then with a brilliant performance against Kerry. Although the Roscommon performance was in there in the Connacht Championship, and we thought they'd rub that off. They were going to go all out, and then the struggle with Louth, and they get beat by Cork, and that's Mayo. That's just sums Mayo up so much that they can go from the brilliant to the mundane in the space of weeks. So it's in them, and I don't think it's going to be a season where Kevin McStay is going to be able to work that in one season. I think that if he's going to work the All Ireland, looking at it, it's going to be hard to do it in the one season. He's got to do it over a length of time, and maybe you're talking two, 3 years to rewire that DNA that they have, that the ability just to self-destruct.
Have we kind of underestimated Cork in that group? Because you look at the results that they have, and they're significantly better than probably what Mayo did. I mean, they ran Kerry pretty close. Also at home, they beat Louth, albeit by 2 points, and then they had that great win against Mayo at the weekend. But it's probably the first time anyone's properly mentioned them, and even with that result against Kerry, where there was only the 2 points in it, it was seen more as a flaky Kerry than actually a really good Cork performance.
100%. We've underestimated Cork, I think, but we can only go on what we see. We were going on the league there. We were going on the Munster Championship, and we were probably right to write them off. But if you listen to Jack O'Connor after the game, in an interview after the Kerry game, that he's not surprised. He knew what it was about, and I would chat to Thomas O'Shea the odd time, and he knows, and he's talked about the quality that's in Cork, and they're backing it up slightly. And when you do look about, you have the likes of Hurley and Ian Maguire and these boys, like they do have the quality. Powder's there as well. So we definitely underestimated, and we probably didn't give them as much credit for the potential they have. They had a bad league, but they have potential. And
they're in the situation where this is maybe not the year where they go a bit further, but that next year it's something that they'll take on. Like, there's enough of the younger lads in there to take this team a bit further. Exactly, and that's what it's about. That's the great thing about this new format. You look at Westmeath have come on there from winning the Talent Cup, giving a brilliant account of themselves in the group format, and it's up to them to push on. And Cork will be the same. They're not going to get to a semi-final, they're not going to get to a final, but it's up to them now that they have the evidence there that they're a good team, and if they can just back it up now for the next 2-3 years, then hopefully they'll get competitive and be competitive and start winning Munster Championship.
In terms of the teams who have the week off, how important is that bye going to be, do you think? Or at this stage of the season, actually, given how much training and how well conditioned the teams are, is there some benefit to actually playing week in, week out?
There's definitely benefit. It just depends who you ask in terms of that momentum that's built, that you just get a game week in, week out. But I also think there's benefit to watching the teams they're playing this weekend. They're in the shop window, and again, you go back to the point where it's a knockout game. So things are going to be tried that they might have been held back in the group stages, and they might have been in a weak comfort zone. Players are going to show their hand a wee bit more, management the same, and it's an opportunity for the teams in the quarterfinals to get a wee look at, and to rest up and get a wee bit of freshness in their legs, and whatever wee lessons they've learnt over the last few weeks, that they can hone them this week, freshen up, hone them this week, hone them at the weekend, freshen up for the week, and really go at that quarter-final. So it just depends who you ask, and it depends what way you look at it.
With Kerry, for example, right, there was a significant factor, I think, a certain cohort who thought that the Mayo thing, the performance was actually indicative of a team that was a little bit off it this year. But they've obviously been able to lick their wounds since against Cork, who they obviously have a special relationship with and always get up for, and that first half performance was good. And then they blow away Mickey Hart's Louth, which would have meant something to the Kerry folk. The fact that it was Mickey Hart and the games in the noughties have scarred them and scarred their football culture so much, even though they won't admit it. So are they back? Are we to assume that they're back, and like Seanie O'Shea's form is back because he plays well against Louth? Or are there still for you question marks that they haven't come up against a side?
I'll answer that question after the quarter final if they're back or not. But the big thing is that Seanie O'Shea has picked up and found a bit of form. That was the big thing, that everybody was looking at Clifford. He shut Clifford out, and he needed the Seanie O'Sheas to be standing up. And Seanie O'Shea, when he came onto the scene, was, you know, he very, very good player, and something that, you know, all the gloss of what Clifford done, Seanie O'Shea was outstanding, and they need him. Kerry actually need him. I feel that is maybe not as much as Clifford, but they on that level, just a few percent below it, that they need Seanie O'Shea going as well.
We were talking about Footballer of the Year at various stages. I thought when Galway scored that goal, I was like, okay, well that's a potential candidate for Footballer of the Year. But like, am I just overthinking this? The Footballer of the Year has to be Clifford, because he's already scored, whatever is it, 520 something. Or did those performances against those lower tier teams not count as much just yet?
I think that, like, for me, Clifford's the Footballer of the Year at the minute, but there's still a lot of football, and there's still a lot of statements to be made in these knockout games, and Clifford will come up against the better quality of man markers. But like, Clifford is the standout player at the minute. But again, there's a lot of football to be played.
You tweeted last night, Eamon, that you were struggling to pick a favourite for the All-Ireland after that weekend. Having slept on it, do you feel like you're any closer to working out who you think it might be?
No, not at all. I didn't sleep thinking, trying to work out trying to read the form book now, but I definitely don't agree with Ger in terms of having Dublin and Kerry way out there. I think, you know, Galway are probably... If that was a knockout game yesterday, I think Galway would have found a way to beat our man. You know, would have risked Comer. I think Galway possibly are just a wee bit out there for me at the minute. And you know, I've watched Derry a few times, and I've never walked away from them thinking, right, that's an All-Ireland winning team there now. But when you look across the landscape and you see what's out there and the different teams that are probably in contention, like, have any of them put up their hands? So maybe Derry could be building up a wee bit of momentum here.
All right, Eamon, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Cheers.
That's Eamon McGee giving us his thoughts on the games at the weekend.